Your dad, Thomas, ran Leadville back in the day, the 100. Yeah. Did he just do that the one time, or how many times did he do that?
He did it 4.
4 times.
Yeah, and he never finished.
Never finished.
He didn't.
What was the farthest he got?
He got to the boat ramp, Tabor boat ramp. So what is that, like 6 miles from the finish?
Oh, wow. That is insane. Sometimes, in order to live a life of purpose, one must sacrifice the spoils coveted by the rest of us. In order to live their dream of building a life and family business centered around running, today's guest, Justin Ricks, quit his corporate job and moved with his wife and 2 young children into the 60 square feet of their pickup trailer to save costs while building Mad Moose events from scratch. Today, Mad Moose hosts 20 events annually, mostly trail ultras in and around Moab, Utah, and Colorado Springs, Colorado. The family business, co-owned by 2 generations of Ricks, is poised to grow in 2021 in spite of the effects of COVID on our industry. I think for most of us, 2020 has changed the perspective on how we look at our lives. So if you're looking for a nudge or a shove in the direction of following your dreams, please listen to this episode of the Athlinks Podcast and get some inspiration from Justin and the rest of the Ricks. So if you're ready for the show, crank it up and let's go. Welcome to the Athlinks Podcast. I am your host, Troy Bousseau, coming to you from the icy sidewalks of Broomfield, Colorado. It is December 14th, 2020, and it is episode 18. How you doing, Justin?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I am doing fantastically. Thank you for coming by the show today. It is great to have you. We have Justin Ricks from Mad Moose Events on the podcast today. You guys are all over. We live just right outside of Boulder here, but I see your hats and apparel all over the place. So it's great to have you in here.
Thanks for having me.
Indeed. So you've got kind of an interesting story here. You were a high school runner, actually going even farther back. Your dad, Thomas, ran Leadville back in the day, the 100. Yeah. Did he just do that the one time, or how many times did he do that?
He did it 4.
4 times.
Yeah, and he never finished.
Never finished.
He didn't.
What was the farthest he got?
He got to the boat ramp, Tabor boat ramp. So what is that, like 6 miles from the finish?
Oh, wow. That is insane.
Yeah, I was pacing him, and when he got to the boat ramp, I'd been with him since, like, it was a fish hatchery then. It's like outward bound now. I'd been there with him since fish hatchery, and we got to the boat ramp. He's like, I think I'm going to drop. And I said, yeah, I think that's a great idea.
No kidding.
It was like 4 or 5 in the morning. I was 13 or 12. I wanted to go to sleep, you know. I didn't want to be out there anymore. I probably wasn't the best person to be pacing him at that point.
Wow.
But, you know.
No kidding.
Yeah, he called quits there.
How far did you run with him?
Just from the fish hatchery to the boat ramp. So that's like 16 or 17 miles.
Yeah. How was he running before then? Was he still able to run, or was he walking, or was he?
He had been walking.
Yeah.
He'd been walking. He'd been running a little bit of the downhill coming down off of Sugarloaf, but we could have walked it in.
Yeah.
Easily. We had plenty of time. We had 5 hours. We could have walked in the last 5-6 miles. I just, he had 7 kids, he has to go back to work on Monday, and he's got, all the other fun things going on. And so I just think that he thought, like, I've given it everything I have for the day, and
no kidding.
There, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And my mom, just let him back in the car. So it was, I don't think Denise would have ever let me back in the car if I'd gotten to that point. No, she would have just been like, you're not getting in the car. Yeah. We'll walk with you, or you can lay down on the ground and take a little nap. But yeah,
she's shaking her head right now, saying no, definitely not. Would not have let you in. Wow, that is crazy. I paced a guy a couple years ago, and it was kind of a similar deal where we were being chased by the clock the whole time. Like each of the last 2 or 3 checkpoints we were in, first one was like 10 minutes, and then it went down to 8 minutes, and then 5 minutes. And when we went into, I think it was outward bound, mile 75, I think that was outward bound. They were waving their arms and yelling at us, you're just about to hit the limit. And so he made it out of outward bound maybe another 3 miles. and it was getting so cold and stuff. But he could not run. He had 25 miles. It was middle of the night. It was freezing cold. I cannot imagine calling it quits 6 miles from the finish especially, well ahead of the time gap.
Yeah. Yeah. I was pacing my brother. He was able to finish in 2019.
Okay.
And yeah, he kind of was joking that, like it seemed like a pretty good idea to get in the car because they were waiting for us at the boat ramp, and he was like, "I think I'm just going to call it quits there."
Yeah.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
That's funny.
We'll walk the rest of the way, and we did end up walking the rest of the way. I don't think we ran another step from May Queen into the finish. So yeah.
That's I think I don't know if everybody really understands how much walking there is involved in a race like that for most people. I was at Outward Bound. I dropped my car there and then got the car back to wherever I met him at mile 65. But watching the leaders run through there, it was insane watching these people like run in, sit down, like be eating a piece of pizza and just, give me my blue shoes and, this and that. Like they were in the middle of a 5K. I mean, it was just absolute. These people looked fresh as daisies. And then just a few hours later, seeing the next group of people come through that did not look fresh as daisies by any stretch. Have you done Leadville?
I have not.
Okay. Any desire to?
Yeah, I've been saying every year.
Yeah.
Every year I've been.
You're a little busy these days.
A little busier than I have been. Yeah. I've done the marathon and I've done the 50 mile, but I've never gotten out to do the 100. So.
Yeah. It's a great, I love running up in Leadville. It really is fantastic.
Yeah, I grew up running there, and so that's where we found trail running, and so Leadville has a special place in my heart.
Yeah. So when you're 13 and you're pacing your dad, and he calls it quits 94 miles in, were you thinking to yourself like, you were a runner at the time, you were high school and stuff, but like, how did you? Because this is like ultras are pretty. Sexy these days with Instagram and everything else. I mean, it's definitely like gotten into the zeitgeist and really captured the imagination of people with all the, Born to Run and so many other great books. But at the time, what year was this when your dad did this?
I think the first time he was 92 or 93.
Yeah.
So yeah, we set up our aid station, our crew spot in the parking lot at Twin Lakes. Okay. So, and we just opened the van door and he just ran up to the van door. Now you got to park like a mile and jump on a bus and ride in and all sorts of fun stuff. So yeah, it's definitely changed a whole lot.
Yeah.
And the sport's changed a whole lot. And
at 13, were you thinking your dad was like a superhero or a total idiot?
Oh, I thought he was a superhero. Yeah. I mean, we were going out there every, before the run camp was really the run camp. The very first year that people got together to train for Leadville, we were there for that. And so we would go every summer and we would just camp and we would rent cabins. And so it was just something that we did. Like once the snow left, we were in Leadville all summer long as much as we possibly could as a family. And so, it was.
Yeah, that's cool. And so your high school cross country, was it like, at what point do you realize like, okay, I'm probably good enough to get do this in college and move to the next level? Like how good were you in the high school side of things? I was all right, I think I was second my sophomore or my junior year, and in the big division, so 5A, and then I was fifth the next year, and I'd had big expectations my senior year, and like we were supposed to win state as a team, and things didn't quite work out the way they were supposed to. But everything happens for a reason. So. I mean, from a very early age, I kind of always knew that I wanted to be a runner my whole life, and that the ultra scene is where I was going to go. Even before, like you said, it was super more popular, more mainstream, and still not mainstream or popular, but I mean, just definitely more popular than it was back in the day. Yeah. So you have 6 siblings?
I do.
How many of them were runners as well?
Pretty much all of us were.
Yeah. So total running family. So this, and we'll get into your sort of current story, but this has been a theme in your family to kind of combine the family, maybe not the business with your dad, but certainly the family business these days, but get the whole family running behind you.
Yeah. We've been, I've been running after I started running again after, getting a little heavy. I always tried to find ways to involve the family. I was working my corporate job, and I was putting in 50, 60 hours a week, and I was traveling. And so, I didn't want to miss out on my family on Sunday. So I just made them come with me.
Yeah, that's
whether I
funny.
was running up Pikes Peak, they just came, and even if they weren't like with me at the time, I knew they were on the trail. I knew they were at the bottom.
Yeah,
and we got to ride to we got to ride together to things, and we'd go out to lunch, things afterwards, and so it just kind of turned into just a family activity. And, we never really forced our kids to run. It was just more like, hey, we're going to go out here and you should come along. So,
yeah. Have they gone through any sort of ebbs and flows with it, or have they been pretty consistent on the running train?
They've been pretty consistent until COVID hit in March.
Okay.
And then, my son's a senior, and that was really tough for him to lose that track season. And he had some depression and
really?
some, I could just see it, that he just was having a hard time with, not really getting to finish up his senior year, and that he felt like everything kind of gotten taken away from him, with everything that was happening. He'd worked so hard for so many years and had this great vision of and all his good friends were on the track team, and he was super pumped about the last season. So he really hasn't run since
wow,
COVID.
really? Okay.
Yeah, and that's all right. He'll find it when he's ready.
Sure.
He's in the running business, and so he'll find it. He'll find his way back. He loves running, and so he's just on one of those downturns right now. But when he comes back, he'll be stronger than he ever was.
Yeah.
My daughter never loses focus. Even when I try to get her to just be like, hey, it's okay to gain a little weight, and it's okay to take a couple days off, I sort of have to force her to take those days and that time off. She's more the one that I have to be like, no, you can't do that.
Wow. Well, that's pretty interesting. Okay, so you wrap up your high school running career, you get into college, and what year did you guys meet? What year of your schooling did you meet your wife?
We met right away, freshman year, yeah. So that was like 98. So we graduated from high school and met Denise, a few months later on the cross country team, and we started dating in October.
Okay.
Yep, and then we've been together since.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so you knew each other sort of vaguely through high school running in the local area.
Yeah.
Right, and then ended up at the same college.
Yep.
And so how many years did you run in college?
I ran for a year, and then I took a year off and then ran again.
Okay.
And Denise ran for 1 year.
Got it.
And then called it good after that.
Okay. Was that, I keep forgetting you're not mic'd up. I was going to ask you a question. It's okay. So getting through, like when you meet your wife, are you, the idea of at this point, with your dad, with your siblings, with yourself, with your running, how much of was that kind of a deal breaker for you? Were you looking to date and then, marry a runner? Was it that important to you, or were you even thinking that, or did you just happen to fall for another runner?
I always wanted to marry a runner because I always wanted to have kids that were runners.
Yeah.
And, but I didn't, wasn't like really planning.
Sure.
Yeah. It just happened the way that it happened. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I had a couple on one of the first episodes, Lindsay and Chris Sachs, and I asked them the same question. Like, was that something you were kind of looking for? Was that a deal breaker for you? Because we tend to think a lot about like religion or politics or finding those common things that form the core of a great relationship. And I think the hobby side can be good and bad because like when you're both fighting for that same time resource, it can be really challenging. And so I'm always curious to see how people kind of approach that side of things.
Yeah. With the running part, Denise always sacrificed for me, especially because I was at work all day, and it was just something that I wanted to do. So, yeah.
Yeah. So it worked out though.
It worked out. Yeah, it worked out. It worked out well.
It's nice when there's a light at the end of that tunnel too, where you're kind of like pushing the jog stroller and stuff, knowing I guess you're hoping that eventually one day those kids are going to be running alongside with you and stuff. And that's it is great to be able to build that kind of running life around your family and stuff.
Yeah, it's important to have the same kind of hobbies. I think when Denise and I met each other, we didn't really know what we were doing. I had really no idea what was going on. I didn't have any values really. I mean, I had some things that my parents had taught me, but I didn't really know what I really wanted. So we got to grow up together.
Yeah.
And we got to find those kind of things together.
Yeah.
So.
Well, neither of you look old enough to have a 20-year-old and then a recent graduate from high school too. So this was pretty young. I mean, when you started having kids and building the family.
Yes. Yeah. We met when we were 18, and Malachi was born 3 years later.
Okay.
So yeah, we were 21.
Got it.
So yeah, we didn't get, a whole lot of time.
Oh, man.
But now we have it now, though.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, you put down the bottles of booze for the baby bottles, and that's like the 21st birthday is you're having kids. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But as you say, now you sort of got that chapter closed, and now you're off to the next chapter.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when your kids are growing up, you're how consistent then did you stay? So once the kids are born, and you leave college, and you're starting your corporate gig, did you just maintain that level of running and fitness, or did you sort of take a hiatus from that?
Yeah, I took quite a bit of a break.
A bit of a break.
I'd probably run a little bit too much in high school, and kind of come to college just a little burnout. So when I met Denise, I was just like, there's just way better things to do than run.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't something I wanted to do anymore.
Yeah.
And so, I stopped doing that. And then Denise got pregnant. And so I was like, well, I should probably drop out of school so I can have health insurance. So I got a job just selling cars.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I was selling cars and decided like, this isn't for me. So I quit the car job. I went and rolled back into college again because I just wanted I wanted to coach cross country.
Yep.
And I wanted to teach math.
Okay.
And so I thought, I mostly just wanted to coach cross country.
Yeah.
The math part was just it was just part of the deal.
The vehicle.
Yeah. And I like kids and I like running, and so being able to be in the school and recruiting, I just wanted to build like a really great program.
Yeah.
So, but I had another opportunity that came up. I was just working a job, delivering furniture and things, and they gave me an opportunity to run my own store. And so I just dropped out of school again for a second time, took the corporate job, moved my family to Alamosa, opened up a store, and just committed my life 100% to that. And I just quit running completely 100% and just focused everything I had on that and starting my family.
Yeah. Did you recognize at the time that like running was maybe one of the things that got you successful in that other situation, or like in your life where running was this important piece to your success, or did you not really link the two together?
I mean, I think running definitely helped me stay, gave me purpose and goals to achieve, so that when I got to my job, my career that I had, it was a lot easier to, because when you get up every day, put your shoes on and grind, it's not as hard to go to work. And so, yeah, I thought that the running definitely prepared me for that. Yeah. So, yeah.
And so did you consciously kind of leave it behind and let the job encroach on that? Or was it just kind of like life happens kind of thing?
It was kind of just a life happens kind of thing. I had 2 newborns. I had a brand new, a store that I was running. I'd opened it from the ground up, from everything. And so I just spent a ton of time. I was just a young kid. I think I was only 24 years old.
Wow.
And here 23 years old, something like that. Here I am managing a store. I was the youngest person in the store. And a year later, I got promoted to run the whole district.
Wow.
And I, again, was like the youngest person in the whole entire, I had 50 employees, and I was the youngest person in the whole place. So, I kind of gave up my whole entire life for that job. And I worked that job, in that same position as a district manager for a couple of years. And then they wanted me to take a regional job, and they wanted me to move to Mississippi and Georgia and Tennessee and North Carolina, and wanted me to run those 4 states. Yeah. And I kind of just looked up at the people that were above me. And the thing that I noticed was that just, they were overweight, and their divorce rate was really high, and their kids didn't really like them a whole lot. And so I just came home and was like, hey, they want me to take a promotion, but I think I'm going to do the direct opposite of what they think I should do. And I think I'm going to look for a different different career.
Situation,
yeah.
wow.
Mm-hmm. And I'd gotten kind of, I'd gotten overweight. I'd gotten up to like 250 pounds, probably gained, like, when I was in peak marathon shape, I was 170. Okay. So, I'd gained 80 pounds and I was completely focused. I mean, I was really good at what I did and we were super successful. I mean, I was the youngest person to ever be promoted into that position. And then here they are a couple of years later, they wanted me to move up, but I mean, I had to give up everything. Yeah. I was on the road all the time. And so what really changed I just decided one day that I didn't want my kids to not be active like me, and that I wanted them to be more active. And I was having a hard time just even keeping up with them as they ran around in the, here I come from like a, sub 16 minute 5K in high school to where I can't even keep up with my kids just a few years later. And so I told Denise, like, I got to do something different. This isn't just working for me. So I started losing weight. And once I started losing weight, I just never wanted to go back to work again.
Wow.
And I would get spring fever every single year. Yeah. So once the weather would get nice, it would get even worse. And I just didn't want to go back. Okay. And I'd just be stuck in the office all the time and working 60 hours and traveling. I mean, I got to still go to really cool places and I got to run in cool places every day, but I just was not, I found running and I'd found like a whole different kind of life that I wanted to live, and I wanted to be around my family more. Yeah. And so, I quit the corporate job and enrolled back in school again, and I wanted to be a teacher again. I was going to go back and coach cross country because that's really, I just wanted to run. Yeah. And I just loved running so much, and I liked giving back to youth. Got it. Running, and there's just nothing better than high school cross country. Yeah. I mean,
so let me stop. So going back, you had started running then before you left the corporate gig?
Yep. Uh-huh.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So you are starting to recognize, like, I'm giving things I'm not willing to give for this job.
Right.
Okay. So it wasn't like, hey, here's this opportunity of a promotion, which fully forced you to kind of look around at the situation you were in. It sounds like that was maybe the straw that broke the camel's back, where you were already starting to recognize that this job was asking things again that you weren't willing to give. You had started to put your life back in a direction that you wanted to see it. And then it sounds like it was the sort of offer of the next step that forced you to come home, look your wife in the eye and say, hey, this thing that we've all been talking about, like more money and more, opportunity and all that stuff, I'm just going to go ahead and say no.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I didn't want it.
Got it.
I just wanted to be a teacher.
Yeah. And so you said that she'd been the one sort of sacrificing early on when you were running and things and making sure that the kids were taken care of and giving you your space on that side. Was it equally as selfish or selfless when you decided to say, I want to go back to school and go teach instead of doing this other thing?
I mean, I thought so. Yeah. Yeah, because some people didn't understand why. I mean, I had a really great job. I was making good money, and they didn't understand why. And I just wanted to be around my family. Yeah. I just thought my family was more important than anything, anything whatsoever that I just wanted to be around them more. Yeah. And Denise was getting close to finishing her degree. And so, I mean, she was going to be a teacher already. Mm-hmm. So it just made sense. Like, I just wanted to hang out with her all the time. And
Mr. and Mrs. Ricks and be would she have been the girls cross country coach probably?
Probably, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And so we would have just split up the responsibilities, and we would have gotten to hang out together at the school level. And we could have been there for our kids as they went through high school. And we could have gotten to coach them and things of that sort. But yeah, I met another race director and then just got into it from there. So I never ended up going back to college the second time. Okay. I enrolled in school, but then I just unenrolled before the semester even started.
Do you think that when you met this race director, were you kind of looking, I mean, it sounds like you were pretty committed to going to school though and chasing this dream of a cross country coach and stuff. What was the thing about events that made you give up that side of things? Because that had to have been like, that's kind of a sure thing, right? There's a pension, there's a state job, it's a very safe path to having two teachers, that's very safe, obviously, right. So what was it about the events that kind of got in your head and said, oh yeah, that's an easier path?
I don't really know. I kind of, again, it just all comes back to running. Like when I was in college, I had talked to a buddy about maybe starting a running store together. And the idea was we would just start a running store in Colorado Springs. And part of that was going to be, we were going to host events. I always wanted to do what is now our Pikes Peak Ultra event. I kind of been talking about that event for 10 or 15 years, even though I never really had any plans of being an event organizer. Really was just more like, I want to be a store owner who does some events to, promote the store and those other kind of things. And so, just, when I met him and he was looking for a business partner and he wanted to expand the business, it just made sense to me to not go back to college, that this was an opportunity for me, and that I just couldn't pass up on it.
So what was his business? Was he a running store owner?
He owned Red Hot. Red Hot trail race in Moab. He owned Red Hot, and he owned a Moss, and he was doing Mass 50 at the time.
Okay, so you kind of absorbed some of those into because the Red Hot's still around.
Well, we were business partners for a year, but it didn't end up working out. Okay. And so we ended up splitting. But I do now have those events.
Okay, got it.
So I did purchase those events last year.
Oh, okay.
No, actually in 2019.
Okay.
Yeah. So last year would have been my first year directing them, and I did direct Red Hot before COVID happened, but a Moss that we never did that one.
So going from wanting to be a cross-country coach, not that that's not hard work, but again, it's a very safe, structured type of environment. You're not it's not like you have to try to get kids to come to, be on your cross-country team. And then even taking it to the next step, which is like, okay, we would just want to run events out of the back of our store. That's very different than having this big 20 race, year-round calendar that you have now with Mad Moose. So was that just a gradual thing? Well, one step further. So how far into your journey now? You said you got up to 250. You were kind of trying to get back into shape. You leave your corporate job. What are you doing to make money in the interim? And then sort of how is your health journey at this point?
After you saying after my corporate job?
Yeah. So you just decide, you know what, thanks, but no thanks. I'm out of here.
I was fortunate they were doing some restructuring.
Okay.
And even though they were eliminating the bottom 10% of the company and then basically giving the top 90% their 10% worth of work. And I just said, hey, I don't want to be here anymore. Can you just give me one of those severance packages?
Oh, interesting.
And so I got a severance package, and I was able to, we moved into our camper and just hit the road for 5 months. Okay. And we just traveled and just lived in the camper. The kids slept in the tent. It was just a truck camper. It wasn't even like a big RV. It was just a truck bed camper on our Tacoma. It wasn't even like a big truck either. And so we always joke we had 60 square foot of space, and we just kind of hung out together for 5 months in that little truck. And it was so cold the whole entire, because we started the trip in February.
Oh my goodness.
And so I think it rained at every single one, or snowed at every single one of our campgrounds until something like May.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but you know what? I was just so excited to be done with my job that I would have slept under a bridge in a cardboard box. And I would have been so happy. Yeah. Wow. I would have been so happy. And so, yeah, it was,
No kidding.
Yeah.
So let's do the math. 60 square feet is 10 by 6, folks. That is for 4 people at this point. Was your daughter's older? Yeah, your daughter's.
Yeah, she's a senior in high school now. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. So, so she's younger.
She's a senior, and he just graduated.
Oh, he just, okay, yeah.
So he's 19, and she'll be 18 in March.
So you have the two of you have your babies in the basically a camper on the back of a pickup truck, essentially. Yeah. How do you, I don't even know how long did you live like that?
The first time was 5 months.
5 months.
So, and we did it a second time. The business has gotten to a point where I was just kind of, it was growing.
Yeah.
My fault. It was growing fast because I was making it grow fast. And it was kind of one of those things that it was like, hey, Denise was teaching in Colorado Springs at the time. She was teaching at the middle school, and she was the cross-country coach.
Okay.
And I just kind of was like, hey, I'm either going to cancel some of these events, or you're going to quit your job and you're going to help me full time. And so she quit her job full time. We moved back into the camper. Part of that was because we knew that we could invest in our company a little better if we didn't have a place to live and we were just living out of the camper. And it also would force us to kind of hit the road. So we just hit the road, went to every race we could possibly find, and ran races, went to expos, just meet and greet, just met people and told them about our business, that these races that we were going to start in these really cool places. And so so we did it for 5 months the first time. The second time, we got a little smarter and got like a 23-foot camper. So we got a little smarter the second time. Still didn't give us a ton of space, but it still wasn't, it seemed like we were, something. It seemed like we were living large in that camper for the next year after that. So
wow.
Yeah, and the kids just slept in tents. I mean, they slept in a tent for basically 18 months over like a 4-year period. So
okay, so they're pretty young at this point still. Like, do they remember that? Do they think about that?
They were like 12.
Yeah.
So it wasn't too long ago.
Okay, so the 4 years was broken up into 2 stints. I thought.
Yeah, it was just they lived in a tent for 18 months out of 4 years.
Okay,
so it was. We went on a 6-month trip, and then we weren't on the road for a couple of years while Denise was a teacher, and then back out on the road again to take the business on.
Got it.
The new race directing business out on the road.
So when you're going to these other races, you're meeting athletes, were other race directors pretty supportive of you? Were they helping you along the way? Did you meet a lot of other race directors?
Yeah. I mean, I'd been running tons already. So I knew most of the race directors because I probably emailed them asking them for a free entry, for an elite entry into the race. And so I knew most of them, and a bunch of them, we got some cool opportunities like Tejas Trails, which is an organization in Texas, hosts this event at these ranches in Texas. And so a couple of those events, we just were there for a whole entire week.
Wow.
And so we got to like hang out and watch them and so.
Yeah. And were you picking up stuff along the way, obviously, of just like, ooh, I like how this company's doing that and the other thing?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we go to those races. We go to races all the time just to see what other people are doing, to see if they have any good ideas that we could, utilize for our events.
Who designs your hats? You guys have the best looking hats that I've ever seen on events.
So BOCO does all the hats.
Okay, so they help you with the designs.
They
and stuff?
do, but we have a really good logo guy, and he's in Moab.
Okay,
and then I just take those logos. I take what BOCO gives me, and then I'm just really tough on BOCO, and I just really like good looking stuff. If I'm not willing to wear it, then. I don't think my customers are going to wear it. So anything that I'm willing to wear, then I think a majority of our customers will wear. And so, that was kind of the idea behind it, was like, I don't want to give anything to anybody that I'm not willing to wear. Right. If I'm not going to wear it, then.
Yeah, we're big BOCO fans. We use them quite a bit, especially on the lifetime side of things. But I remember right when I moved up here, I think 5 years ago, there was a lady at the gym, and she would always wear her mat. And I was like, you're like trying not to look at, another woman in the gym and stuff. But I'm like, man, what is that hat? And then so I finally kind of got up close enough. And then I looked you guys up and I was like, okay. So yeah, you guys, I think it's the Moab. It's one of the Moab half marathons, either spring or fall. My son and I were going to do this past year when COVID happened. And so he finally got to the point where he kind of has gone through his own little journey. I don't know if your kids went through this, but like at first they're like, he was just kind of like, he was running, he did cross country, did track, but was like, I'm not going to run in college. Like, why try kind of thing. And then all of a sudden his junior year, he just like, it just lit a fire. And then he's like, oh, I want to do a half marathon. And, I'm like, well, there's this, because we drove up through Moab when we moved from Phoenix. He and I did a little road trip and stayed at Moab under the stars, a little outdoor camping area and stuff. So yeah, nice. It's got a sweet but sad spot in our heart, because he was great through our move up here, and it was when we hit Moab, the waterworks he just started bawling, and I'm like, oh, we were going to go running at Arches, but we ended up just going getting a pizza and some root beers and sharing a good cry. So yeah,
Moab's a pretty cool place, though.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I was going to ask you about that. So like you, on one hand, if you're in a place like Chicago or Denver, these big cities, it's easy to just throw on an event and you're going to grab 1,000 people just by virtue of a decent weekend and just being in a good market. So, when I'm looking at, Pueblo, Moab, Colorado Springs, Colorado Springs is a pretty decent sized town, but, certainly Moab, how how sure were you, like, as you're picking these locations that like, oh, I'm going to be able to build a business around these destinations where there isn't necessarily like a built-in population, but I'm going to be able to put together enough of an experience to get people to drive out here?
Yeah, I don't think Moab is a real tough sell. So you just have to go out and run, and you just get on the trails and realize that it's not going to be that hard to sell it. That it just sells itself, and it's not just the trails; it's everything else that's going on in town between the national parks and everything else, and Dead Horse State Park. There's just so many great things to do. Yeah. And so when we host events, we know that runners are not coming just to run the race. Right. That they're coming to like see and explore places they've never seen. They want to see stuff on Sunday, and they want to be able to go get good food, and they want to be able to stay at a decent place. So when I looked at everything, I thought, this has everything that our runner base would want. I never thought it would be as popular that it was. And so every year that the races just continue to get more and more popular, I was like, well, we should just start another one. Yeah. And so, I mean, we've got 9 in the area, whether we started them or acquired them. Right. Because we've acquired a few in town. So we pretty much acquired most of the other shorter distance stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah. What do you prefer to put on? Do you like doing the ultras or the shorter stuff? I don't know. Is it easier? Like, is it fun enough for, it's kind of like coming from like I did triathlons forever, and then just the thought of doing a 5K was so boring to me. But so is it the same from a race director standpoint where you're like, yeah, it's easy, but like, who cares? Or do you like doing the shorter stuff?
I like doing the longer stuff. Okay. It's a lot better than the shorter stuff. The shorter stuff's fine. But the longer stuff is a lot more rewarding. So the trail and ultra running stuff's a lot, and that kind of shows, like, we've got our fall half marathon, and I've got a Thelma and Louise marathon half marathon that takes place in Moab on the roads. Those events are no longer going to be on the roads. I'm moving those in 2021 to the trails. So I'm not really. I mean, people said from the beginning that I wasn't really into the road races, and they were correct. I'm not really into them. They're just not really my deal. I mean, we're going to keep Canyonlands. I mean, it's been around for 50 years. You can't change that one. But the other two, I tried for a couple of years, and I quit my corporate job because I just wasn't like having a good time. Yeah. And so I decided that I wanted to have a good time with this next business that I started. And in the last year or two, kind of with the road scene, I was like, I don't really know. Like, this feels a little bit more than what I really wanted. And, it feels a little bit more like the work that I used to have. And so when COVID hit, it was kind of like it put everything back into perspective again. Yeah. And just reminded me why I'd quit my corporate job before, and that like, I want to do things that are fun for me and fun for the family and things of that sort. And then we wanted to eliminate the negativity and some of the negative energy. And it wasn't just the road scene, but just, I mean, when there's only 3 roads into a tourist town, and people have come like really far, and you close one of those 3 roads, and they'd been planning on driving that road, or the tourists can't get out of their houses for 4 or 5 hours. Oh, wow. Not the tourists, the locals. Yeah. Then there's just some negative energy involved with those kind of closures, and so we just kind of we tried to play the politics, and I never thought that when I acquired the half marathons in Moab that I would become somewhat of like involved in government as much as I am, and so I kind of this year has decided to.
So it's easier to put on the trails from a political and permitting and all that standpoint.
I mean, I wouldn't say that it's easier. It's just. I mean, the trail running community is just different than the road running community. The trail running community is willing to help us. They're willing to come and volunteer, and they're willing to help our events be successful because it's more of a community. Yeah.
So you were getting different athletes. You were getting sort of a road group and then a trail group.
And the crazy thing was the only people that were volunteering for my road races were all my trail and ultra runners who were doing it because we have a great volunteer program, and because they love Mad Moose in our community. And so I get 0, and I don't want to say 0, but I get like 0 road runners that volunteer at our events. So and then just it in a town like Moab where it just is hard to get people involved in the race. I mean, they've already got so many other tourist things going on. Right. They don't want to volunteer on the weekends. It's very challenging to get the groups, even though we donate to a lot of different nonprofits and youth groups in town, it's still a challenge.
Yeah. I wouldn't have expected a completely different set of runners, because it's not like it's, Moab is it's such a trail town, like I would just expect, well, okay, I'm going to do Moab, but I'll be on the road this time instead of the trails. So it's interesting that you were getting a whole different kind of core group of runner out there for the road races.
We've seen some of the, the reason why we acquired those half marathons was because we wanted that road customer base. We wanted that diversity within our market. And we wanted to be able to encourage those runners to come to the trails, because we thought that when they came and experienced what a trail race was like, they would never want to go back to a half marathon. No kidding. And we started seeing like our Canyon shirts from like 2010 and 2012 now showing up to our trail events. And so acquiring those halves, even though we pretty much dismantled that entire business, we still got everything that we wanted out of it, because we've converted a lot of trail runners over from the road scene.
Have you consulted with a lot of those runners, or did you just sort of unilaterally make the decisions to say this is how we're going to do it, or did you get a lot of feedback from the, like, I guess, how hard of a decision was it to make this decision?
It wasn't that hard of a decision.
Yeah.
I mean, we just get a lot more support. Our road events should be way more popular. You would just think, just naturally, a road event would be more popular. But I think the key is people are more willing to drive to Moab for a 50 mile or a 50K compared to a half marathon. And those half marathons were really, really popular. The Moab ones were really popular back in the early 2000s. But there just wasn't really a whole lot of other events going on at the time. Yeah. And so people would go there because there was really nothing else happening. And so the market's changed a whole lot in 10 years. And so, it wasn't challenging. The only people I really consulted was with my brother and my family, and just trying to figure out like what they thought. And, so.
Yeah, when I think about that, like, chain from like Beaver Creek down to like Monument Valley, like if you could easily do a nice long week of just, unbelievable mountain biking through Fruta and, Moab and, trail running, like that's a pretty epic part of the country for that type of activity.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Why would you want to, frankly, do a half marathon on the road?
And that's kind of how I felt. I started looking at all the logistics, and I started seeing like what kind of an impact we had on our community. And being that we're locals, we knew that, our community is just, it's going through some growing pains in Moab with the tourism and the popularity of the national parks and Moab just in general. So, we just wanted to limit our impact. And we also wanted to ensure the future of our events, and so every year that we were closing the roads down, it's just harder and harder on the community, which puts more pressure on us. So, if we just make the right choices from the very beginning, then we can ensure that our events are going to continue for the long term.
Yeah, I like how you think about things just from like a very intentional standpoint, where, it's like I'm not having fun putting on this event. And yes, we have customers, but at the same time, if I don't kind of holistically look at this, then the whole, like it's going to affect the rest of the business too.
I think if runners had done Arch's half marathon or Canyonlands half marathon, and then they'd come out to do one of our trail events, they would notice that we really like the trail events a lot better, and that we put in a lot more energy and effort into the road events just because we like them so much more.
Well, it's funny. I did New York City half years ago, and I think about like I love architecture, and so I'm thinking of the Guggenheim and, running down Fifth Avenue and all of the architecture that's all around me. Where you're in a place like Moab, the architecture is arches. It's all these amazing red rock formations and everything. So like getting closer into, it'd be different like New York City half if I'm like a mile away and I know Guggenheim's somewhere out there versus running right past it. It's the same thing in Moab. It's like, well, take me as close to those things as I possibly can,
Yeah.
Like really get me in the dirt.
Yeah.
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 It's pretty magical.
It's a pretty special place.
It really, truly is. Like I I mean, we've all seen the pictures of, like the red rocks and all of that. And, and there's various parts of the country down there. Growing up in Phoenix, there was Sedona and all that stuff. But when I pulled into Moab, I don't know, there's like a magic that lives in that place. It's just super, it's just intense. Like, it's like you can't drive through it without, you want to get out of your car and go run.
Yeah, I think the best way I can explain it to people is you got like the Grand Canyon, you got Monument Valley, you've got like Bryce. Yeah, we've got hoodoos, we've got giant monuments, we've got giant canyons. We may not have as big as canyons like Grand Canyon, but we've got everything that everybody else does in one place. Plus, we have a 13,000 foot mountain.
Yeah.
And so it's just different than any place in Utah, being that you just don't get those big mountains right outside of that, I mean, Moab's at 4,000 feet. There's 9,000 feet of elevation difference in between a 20-mile stretch.
Yeah.
And so it's just different in that aspect. Yeah, you can go places and see monuments. You can go places to see deep canyons, but are you going to see a 13,000 foot mountain at the bottom of them?
Yeah,
so that's the great thing about Moab. It's just there's so many things to do there. I mean, you can go. It doesn't even matter if you live there. Like for myself, like I live there. I've been there for almost 4 years now, and there's just more things to see. Yeah. My list has just gotten bigger every single time. Like the longer and longer I stay, the list just gets bigger and bigger, the things I need to go do.
So speaking of like when your athletes come out and do your trail stuff, they can tell you what you like doing better. It sounds like you just glow Moab, but half of your races are outside of Moab. Like, have you thought about, like, are there just not enough weekends in Moab? Or do you just have you thought about just transitioning Mad Moose all the way to Moab and doing things there, maybe selling off the other stuff? Or
No.
It's just a different.
No. We're looking and expanding even further,
Yeah.
And we're looking this winter for a big push in 2022, because we really think that 2022 is going to be real big for organized events and for event promoters. And I just think it's going to be like a real big year. So we're looking to get from 20 to 30 by 2022. I mean, cool. the kids are graduated from school. Cross country and track takes up a ton of my weekends.
Yeah.
And with them not doing that anymore, gives me that freedom.
Yeah.
I don't have to be worried about like how many weekends I'm working now, because I'm with my family every single day. I'm with the people that are the most important. And so we don't have any intentions of stopping. Yeah. And with Moab, I just think that there's already so many things that are going on. Like, I'm not even really sure they would give us another permit.
Wow.
It is very, very, very challenging to secure permits in Moab. They're tough.
Wow.
Yeah, and they put us through the ringer every single time in order to get a permit. Even though we've been hosting events, we live in town, and we've done a really great job, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So there's no more opportunities, in my opinion. In Moab.
Interesting.
We've pretty much soaked all those up and hosted events on what I think that there are as far as weekends. And so that's why we moved out to Monticello and hosted our Bears Ears Ultra this year, and just kind of started spreading out. And we're from Colorado. So all the races that we have in Colorado Springs, those are the places I grew up. I grew up in Palmer Park. I grew up on High Drive and running all the Pikes Peak trails up there. I never just really spent any time on Bar Trail. And so I just wanted to host races in the places where I grew up running, where I found running. And so even though we don't live in Colorado anymore, or Colorado Springs, it really is our home. Yeah. And, my brother just moved back. So we do have some people here in town, and I have a feeling my kids will move back in the fall of next year. I'm not coming back.
So they're a pretty not even a pretty. They're a completely integral part in the business. So you've literally built this business around your family. They're co-owners in the business. They're right there. I see they do your social media and stuff. And there's some pictures of Malachi like directing traffic before the races and stuff.
They do everything.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's been really interesting with COVID, because before it was just like, just take the aid station supplies. Here's a sheet, throw it all on the ground, set it up. Yeah. Now it's more like corporate. Yeah. I have to go to the aid station, and every table has to be set up a certain way, and everything has to be done a certain way, and everything needs to be. So now my corporate experience experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've been doing all that. They do anything that we will do. So they're like I said, teenagers, but we treat them like adults, and we hold them accountable. And I mean, I will tell them when they're making mistakes.
Yeah.
And they do everything. So they run our social media, and they are equal partners. So it's just the 5 of us running this small family business together. And so most of the times we're just sitting in the living room together, just hanging out, all on laptops, just filling out permits, doing newsletters, social media, all that kind of fun stuff.
Were you guys afforded some latitude being trail races with COVID? Or did you, how many events did you cancel? So basically, quick recap for those listening, through the second week of March, the industry as a whole, we were actually up about 3% across the board. And then second week of March, since then, we've been down as an industry, roughly 95%, 94.5% down as an industry. But it seems like, I know Jen Pfeiffer, who was just on the podcast, she did your last race, the Ultra, the 50, 4 weeks ago?
Dead Horse,
that's right. And so you've had some luck putting on events this year still. Was that because their trail, you guys were given a little bit more latitude, or did you cancel, how long did you guys cancel events for?
We canceled, so we were like one of the first ones.
Yeah.
Moab, Grand County they were trying to, close our events before everything really started. Before everything really started shutting down. So we started dealing with it, and we actually canceled we were one of the first events to cancel, and we canceled both our Canyonlands event and our Behind the Rocks event in March. And then we canceled everything after that until June. And then our first one was Bears Ears, June 25th or 26th, something like that. So we did Bears Ears, and that was kind of fun because that was, we were doing an event during a global pandemic, and it was an inaugural event. So we like trying to put that all together.
Perfect time to start a business.
Yeah, perfect time to start a brand new event in a really tough place. We did cancel the 50 mile at that event, and we did cancel the 50 mile at like our Pikes Peak Ultra because we just felt like 50 milers needed a lot more from us. They were going to want to stop and sit at the aid stations. They want us to untie their shoes. They want us to fill their bottles. They're just a lot needier than like say the 50K runner. So we just were kind of like, well, we're going to just start with 50K distances and under. And we were actually able to host some road events too. So we did the Classic 10K in July, and that was the USATF 10K like state championships. So we had some Olympians and some really fast marathoners come out for that. And so we were able to do some trail races, but we were also able to do some road races. We did a road event in October, our Arches Half Marathon on the road. So we just had to do it a little different. So I had to cancel the shuttles because it's not possible to shuttle everybody to the start, put them all in shuttles, and then do wave starts, especially when you got to close a highway down and you can only do it for a certain number of time. Yeah. So we just did an out and back.
Okay.
And we just did waves and did out and back. So the second it all happened, even before everything got shut down, our county was like, hey, you're going to have to come up with all these new plans.
Yeah.
So Denise and I had spent the whole entire weekend, a weekend that we had like gone out of town for in order to like get away before the big season started to kind of relax. We spent the entire weekend coming up with COVID plans.
Wow.
And so then by Monday they were going to cancel it. And by Tuesday evening we canceled. So
were they giving you a lot of, so like you went off and did this weekend where you were coming up with these plans, were they giving you pretty specific guidance, or was it a lot of vagaries where you were sort of like, I don't know, what if we did this and what if we did this?
They didn't give us any guidance.
Yeah, it's been tough.
It was just kind of like, what could we think of? And so we just kind of looked around between like what other local businesses were doing, and just being like, hey, we got to keep people separate, and we can't let them like touch the same things. And so we just looked at like what our grocery store was doing, and then just looked at it as how our business was set up and how we could take the things that they were doing, and to make our business work out. So we canceled things like beer gardens, and we didn't even post like results on a results board, because you've been in any race, everybody has to touch the results board. Like you can't just walk up and look at the results. You got to get your finger all the way across, and there's always 10 people around it. And so we just sat down and we were like, where do people get together? Okay. And we got to eliminate all those get together things.
Yeah. Yeah, Jen was really complimentary of the race and said she felt like perfectly safe and taken care of, and that you guys had considered all the things and all that stuff. So it's been really tough. Yeah, I mean, it's a lose-lose situation for us right now. Like if we cancel, people are pissed, and if we don't cancel, people are pissed. And so as event organizers, this year has been it's just been filled with negativity and hatred. Sent our way, whether we do or we don't, and so it's been kind of a tough year. Yeah, I have a pretty hardline stance on entrepreneurship, and as these things have happened, where like I look at you and your family, like Mad Moose is your sovereignty, it's your freedom, it's the things where you don't have to go back in and take a corporate job, and it's like unless you've been there, unless you've been an entrepreneur and have been in charge of your own and other people's payroll and those types of things, it's a really difficult thing to relate to. And again, that kind of personal freedom and sovereignty. And so when that starts to get threatened, without being given an opportunity to like, hey, let me try to solve the problems. Let me come to you and say, here's my plan. Here's how I think I can keep people safe. To just have that taken away, which is what is happening to millions of people right now in the country, is really difficult to watch. And it's even more difficult to watch others try to destroy them and take them down for what they perceive to be the right thing.
Right, yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah, I mean, I've pretty much gotten off of Facebook and social media this year. I still have Facebook, but I just don't log in anymore.
Yeah, it's tough.
And so I'm going to do me. Yeah. And I'm going to consult with my health professionals and with my local health departments, and I'm going to come up with plans that work. And if they don't think that they'll work, then they should just tell me no, and I'll move on. And we've had, for example, like Gunnison County wasn't here in Colorado, wasn't really interested in working with us. And so I just I just postponed or redid my events that I had in the spring in Colorado Springs because they wanted to work with us. So it's been, No, and for your benefit, so we don't get a bunch of people calling you out. Again, going back to my friend Jen who did your race, she just said you guys did everything right. So kudos to you on that. So you mentioned 2022 as being a big opportunity. I'm like in the same boat as you on that one. Like I see, as devastating as COVID has been, I felt like things got a little stuffy in our industry. You have things like, Iron Man sells for $1 billion and all that stuff. And our industry started getting, being afraid to take new chances and do different things. And I think back to when early on when I got in and you had like Color Run and Spartan and all of these different formats start to kind of bubble up. And, some were more successful than others, obviously. But it feels like by just completely chopping this business down to like the roots, it gives us an opportunity to come back in different ways. And things like ultras are obviously just tailor-made for that, where it's like have shoes, will race kind of thing. It's pretty simplistic, but what do you see? Like, do you see it just kind of more of the same? Are you guys thinking about innovations and things and different ways that you can look at racing in that regard, or how are you looking at things? I definitely think that there will be some operational and logistical things that we kind of change. Mm-hmm. I mean, the wave starts. We've kind of enjoyed those a little bit. I don't think we're going to do like 5 or 10 people at a time, but I for surely think that we'll do a men's start, and then 2 or 3 minutes later we'll do a women's start, and then we'll do like a main field start, so that I just feel like the ladies get to stand next to each other, and all get to start together is just kind of created like a different kind of energy. And Denise does all of our announcing, and so when the ladies start, she's like, hey, I've got a whole bunch of rabbits out there for you guys to chase today. And so she always, every single race, she turns it into a really fun thing, like, hey, those guys are out there and they think they're faster than you, and you should chase them down.
Where do you put Courtney Dowater in there, though? I mean,
we'll put her with the ladies, you know. Those guys are all going to get caught. But but just to be able to start them together, like, has kind of a different feel and different energy. And so we think that some of those things will change a little bit, but I think overall, most everything that we do will kind of be the same as what we've always kind of done. So,
okay. Yeah. I think there's I'll be really curious to see where, because we've seen a lot more people running and riding and different things in our neighborhood through here, where, you know, I mean, we've got this, like, we moved here specifically for these great walking and running trails, and they were just empty always. You'd have a little bit like at dinner time, you know, people would be out for their walks, and now pretty much any hour of the day, you've got kids riding bikes and people riding bikes. And so I'm really curious to see if people stick to this and, you know, like, actually start taking health a little bit more seriously, and if that then starts to translate out into other things, because that's basically what happened in like 2008 with the financial crisis, is, you know, these big explosions in running and stuff and fitness.
In the 70s too, right?
Yeah,
I mean, there was a big downturn in the economy. Yeah. And that's when the first big marathon boom happened.
Yeah.
So we think it's going to be a big boom, and we really truly believe it's going to be a big boom in the trail scene, because we just truly believe that most people have gotten away. I mean, there's, like you said, there's more people that are running in town than they were before, but I mean, just go to Moab. I'm on the Trail Builders Association, so I'm the trail running representative there in town. And the National Forest announced that they had something like 15,000 bikes go down the whole enchilada in 2019, and this year had 25,000. Wow! So I mean, I just think people are getting out on the trails and they're going into their mountains, especially in the places like Colorado and Utah. Yeah. And so I just think that we're going to see a big boom on the, we know mountain bike sales are up and bike sales are up big time.
Can't buy one.
Yeah. You can't even get anything and you can't get parts, nothing. And so we know that we believe 2021 is going to have a very same feel to 2020. I mean, there's definitely a lot more hope and optimism and things of that sort. But we still believe that it's going to be wave starts and, all the things that we do now, we're not going to do shuttles. I mean, we could see that maybe shuttles are coming back and some of those kind of things in the fall, but we see that 2021 is going to be very similar to what last year was, and that there's still going to be a lot of mandates and restrictions and all these other special things that you got to do. And then we think 2022 will be a lot better. So we think that the event organizers that hosted events in 2020, if you're looking to host events, we've been telling people you should just stick with, not just us. And we're not just saying just us. We're just saying the race directors that have taken the extra time, the extra energy to live up to their obligations. Yeah. When we take a registration from a runner, we look at that as I'm trying to give them a life-changing experience. And so when I take their registration, it's not about just hosting, it's about hosting the event and doing everything I possibly can to host the event. But it's also making sure that they have a really great time in this life-changing experience that I'm going to give them, and I want to help them through the 50 miles so that they have as fewer roadblocks created by me as a race director. Yeah. And so we just like to see, I've just been telling our running community, support the race directors that have put the extra work in this year to make the things happen. Cause we hosted 9. So we've hosted 9 events post COVID. And so, and there's a few others that have put in that extra work. So
no, and I mean, and you mentioned it with your son, we see it, we hear it, we talk to athletes all the time, the amount of, depression, whether that's a capital T or a lowercase t, with races not being around. It's so, I don't think you can put a price on the effort and the energy and all of the things that it takes to put on an event. It's something that 13 to 15 million people are going to cross a finish line on feet this year in the U.S., and that's represented by just a few thousand race directors. It's not like millions of race directors and they're just coming out of the woodwork. I mean, it's a hard job, and we encourage athletes every time that we can, thank a race director, right now, especially reach out to race directors and let them know we'll be there when you're there. We're not going anywhere, that type of thing, because there's a lot of race directors who are hanging up the shoes this season to say, and who knows if they'll ever come back,
Yeah, for surely our market's going to look a lot different in 2022. It's just going to be the people who were not doing it for the right reasons are not going to be doing it anymore. And so
maybe that's not a bad thing. I mean,
it's probably not.
Down,
It's probably not a bad thing.
So let's talk on Mad Moose real quick. What is like an ideal? So let's just talk about the Moab events for a second. Like, what is a kind of prototypical way somebody experiences one of your events? Meaning, like, am I camping? Am I Airbnb-ing in Moab? Like, tell me the whole weekend type experience for one of your races typically.
So, we have.
I know it runs the gamut,
right?
Obviously.
But we have some events that are typically like in January.
Yeah.
Like January 30th, you don't want to sleep on the ground or in a tent or really in a camper, even though we will be at the start. I'll be at the start in an RV, but most people don't want to camp for that one or really even Dead Horse. But like by the time Behind the Rocks happens, that's in a March event, and it's kind of outside of town. It's about 15 miles outside of town, south of town, and it's just like the last hidden gem of Moab. There's just nobody out there, and so we'll have 800 runners for that event, and 250 of them will camp with us. They don't usually stay on Saturday night. They just roll in usually like Friday night at like midnight and wake everybody else up, and then roll out on Saturday because they want to get a shower and things of that sort. But we typically have quite a few people that camp for that one. So it's a mix of both.
Yeah.
And some of the new road events that we have taken off the road, and we've moved out to Behind the Rocks. That little setup that's out there, and so we've added like a marathon, and with the road race you can only have like 4 hours. So where the road is closed now, you can stay. Yeah. You have like 7 or 8 hours to finish a half marathon.
So you kind of camping with other runners? Are you spread out? Is it a pretty kind of a communal type of?
You can do either. So like we had this year with our 24-hour, because we had a 24-hour in the same spot. We just spread people out a lot more, and it was a smaller event, and we weren't concerned about people being real close because we know that we can put like 1,000. We usually have like 1,000 people, and we only had 120 something. So, like there's just so much camping out there. Yeah. So for both of those events, or our Moab events, it just depends on what type of the year, and each event has a different feel. Like they really truly do. Some of our races, like a Massa, has more of like a road feel because it's 25K. That's the farthest distance, and so it has a little bit more of a road feel. So each race is completely different from one another. So
from like March to like when is safe camping weather in Moab? March to like October, September?
Yeah, you don't want to camp in the summertime.
Okay.
No,
too hot?
Oh, it's like 110.
Okay. Just too hot.
So usually camping's good from like middle of March until middle of May.
Okay. And so spring and fall events.
Yeah, just spring and fall. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then that's why we do the winter ones too, because most race directors they don't want to be in the snow all day, but we don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't care. So we just want to give
you
runners
lived in 60 square feet with babies, so you don't care. You're used to the punishment.
Yeah, so for Arches Ultra in January, we typically have to like shovel the parking lot area where we're going to set up our arch and all that stuff, and we go out and like shovel the aid station areas so that the sun can hit it, because the snow doesn't melt like it did in Colorado. I thought when I moved to Moab, like, I'm never going to have snow. No, it snows there and then it stays for like 3 or 4 weeks.
Wow. Okay.
And then it snows again like 8-10 inches and stays 3 or 4 weeks. So we pretty much have snow on the ground all year long.
Okay.
And so yeah, so each race has a different feel, and even our Colorado races are the same way. Like we got our Gunnison events, like our Crested Butte Ultra and our Sage Burner. Those events, people camp with us more, especially our volunteers and our ambassadors and things like that.
What's so cool about the ultra scene, and especially where you guys have your events and things, is like, again, as the COVID cloud lifts, hopefully, and you're looking to get more of an integrated, connected, meaningful experience in your life. Like that to me is such a great opportunity. Certainly if you're listening to this podcast, the idea of like going out this spring and going down to Moab and camping and running, and maybe more importantly, extending that, because everybody's got these great stories of, I was on course, I met this person, this conversation, but like thinking about Friday night and camping and, sharing those stories and then racing the next day and extending that out. Like, it's just such one of these experiences that you may never experience racing the same way again,
Yeah, I think people were, I think when this all happened, people were like, oh, running, we can do it without the organized events.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like the general theme, like just go out and run a trail. Like we'll just shut them all down. It's not a big deal. It's like whatever, just shut them all down. Who cares? You can run anywhere. And I think what people realized is there's a reason why they're coming to the events.
Yeah.
And, it's their social group and it's not about running. Like anywhere you want at any point. It's about running with those 1,000 people that signed up to be there that weekend. And so, sure, there's some people who do like to run alone, but I think the biggest part of our community realized this, this last year that they really do value that community. I think that there's going to be a lot more community than ever before.
For sure.
So, and we're already talking about like, what can we do to create better community atmosphere at the finish? Because we have missed it as well. And we will admit that we aren't the best sometimes at creating we create a good community just because we host good events, but we don't do like the after parties and the beer gardens and all those kind of things. Like we actually don't have any beer gardens and we don't have any after parties. We have our event and that's it. You go home and do your thing. And so we've been trying to figure out new ideas and new plans and things to try to create community. Because I think what people realized is the events are like their personal trainer.
Yeah.
They put their money down. And I know I have, because I've been really disappointed this year because, I put my money down on a race. I get committed. I run and run and run and run. And then they cancel it a week before. And I've had tons of races canceled this year that I've even signed up for like 2 weeks before, going like, well, what can change? It's August. What can change in 2 weeks? COVID's been here since March. What can change? And then they cancel it on me 7 days later. And it's like, you knew 7 days ago when you took my money and now you don't, you'd like, and so what, we've learned a lot is like, we want to treat our customers, the way that we want to be treated. And that's, if we take your registration, we're going to do everything we possibly can to host the event. And if they tell us no, then they tell us no. And there's nothing that we can do about it. But we have signed up for so many events this year just to have them canceled. Like we signed up, like, I'm just going to wait till 2 weeks before, because if they're taking payments 2 weeks before, they've got to. So, hopefully, and that's the reason why we've tried to follow through this year, is because we want to let our customer base know that we're not going to do that. And if you're looking to like put your money down on something and then put your energy into it and be able to come all the way through your goal, then in 2021 you should sign up with somebody who has shown that they're going to do that.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Because there's so many other race directors that, in my opinion, are giving the rest of us, like you said, 95% of us aren't hosting events. Those 95%, 70% of them are still taking registrations.
Got it.
And so I think that's what's like, there's all this mistrust that's happening now within our community, within our running, because they don't trust race directors. Because I don't.
That's interesting.
I've signed up for tons and had tons. The whole series, and I got Airbnbs this fall, and it just didn't end up working out, and they canceled them all at once, and it was just like, wow. Now like that's not what we want to offer for our runners. We want to do, when they sign up for our event, we're going to do everything we possibly can in order to follow through on that. So
Mad Moose carrying the water for everybody right now. Well, this is a point in the podcast. We normally do a little 10-question dash. You ready to answer some questions? So you can answer these questions from like the race director side or the runner side, since you wear both hats. So I'm gonna put on a little theme music here. So alrighty. So first question, only honest answers here. So first question, easy. What's your gear look like? What brands, like what kind of shoes do you typically like to run in?
I only run a New Balance.
Only run a New Balance?
Only New Balance. When I wear a 14 and I needed 2E. And when you would like type in 14 2E, the only thing that really comes up is New Balance. Okay. Yeah, and especially that we like in a racing flat and things like that. So
what do you run trails in? Do you run trails in a trail shoe or in a road shoe?
A combination of both. Now that I've gotten older, I wear more trail shoes. When I was younger, I would wear the lightest shoe I could possibly find, but that's not really sustainable.
Yeah, I wear trail shoes to the mall. Next race. What is your next race? So you only run. So the question was bike run or like OCR or something else, but you run. So what's your next race you're signed up for?
I'm not signed up for any events.
Okay. What's your bucket list event? What's the one that's out there that you'd love to do?
The only thing that's left is the Leadville 100.
Okay.
That's the only one, yeah.
All righty, good. You got a favorite sports book, movie, anything you want to share with us? Documentary? What's your favorite? I see ESPN's doing a 30 for 30 on the whole Born to Run thing.
Yeah, that's what Denise said, and I saw that comes out tomorrow.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm more just a Star Wars fan,
okay,
and a Tour de France fan. So
that's fine.
Running I watch a little bit, but
alrighty. So okay, so what's your favorite race that you've ever run?
I would say Red Hot.
Okay.
I mean, it was my first ultra. And I ran it quite a few times. So
very good. So that I was the next question was, what's your favorite race of the ones that you own? So would that be
probably Pikes Peak Ultra is my favorite, right, just because that's where I grew up and that's where I
all right,
found running.
Do you listen to music when you run?
I do.
Okay, what's your home stretch song? What gets you across that finish line?
I only listen to EDM and house music.
Oh, wow.
Or trap music when I'm running. So,
all right. Well, then the next question was, what's the most embarrassing artist on your playlist? So,
I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Well, good. We'll say that. So, all right. Do you have a pre-race ritual or superstition? Do you do anything crazy?
No, not really.
No. It's funny how people are either like, oh, I've got 17 of them, or I have none.
Yeah, I try not to think about it too much, because I'm an overthinker.
Yeah, I hear you.
So I tried to just like let Denise pick up my packet and not go to the expo and just watch TV and just chill and just try not to think about it. So
probably a good policy.
Yeah.
All right, living or dead, who would you most like to share a long run with?
Steve Prefontaine.
Oh, very good. That's a great answer. You're the first to give that one. That's surprising. It's interesting. All right, last question, Justin. What is the secret?
The secret for anything?
Exactly.
I don't know. Just enjoy life.
Just enjoy life.
Yeah, do what you love.
Very good. Well, you are certainly the poster boy for that. You've definitely lived that life. I think that's it's this year, especially with so much change and strife and stress and death and blah, all of those other things. Like, I don't know. I think people identify with that kind of hero story, like that big epic thing that happens that then gets you to rethink your life. And we're all waiting for this massive catharsis to happen for us to really make change. But you kind of were just like, no. I just want to make a change. And you went and made a really radical change. And I just, I think it's super inspiring, and congratulations on that. And for making it work for so long and building really, I think, an admirable and envious life around it with you and your family. So
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any words of wisdom you'd like to share with the listeners here, or anything else you'd like to say other than come out to a Mad Moose event?
Not really,
Yeah, that's good.
I think that's
it. Again, I will tell everybody, go out to a Mad Moose event. Somehow I've skirted this and not been to one of your events and not done one of your events, but I absolutely will as events start to come back. But everybody that I've talked to here in town that has done your events have loved them. I love your gear. Again, your hats are like my favorite around. So we'll definitely get people as adventures. If you're looking for a great adventure this spring, I think doing something out in Moab or Colorado Springs would be a pretty fantastic way to spend a weekend.
Yes,
yeah,
I agree.
Indeed.
Oh,
cool.
And our courses are super tough. So don't come looking for me afterwards.
Well, who wants an easy ultra?
No, they're all super hard.
Yeah, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah,
thanks for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. Anytime. I mean that very much so. So on that note, we will say goodbye, and that was fantastic. So hope you enjoyed it. More people racing more often, having more fun in the process is our mission. Thanks again to Justin Ricks of Mad Moose Events for sharing his story. Go check them out for some great races around Colorado and Utah. The best way to support this podcast is be sure to click subscribe on iTunes or follow us on Spotify to be notified of new shows. Give us a rating and a quick review on iTunes. So we do a special post for each episode on Instagram. So look for the post with episode 18 with a picture of Justin or a Mad Moose logo. We'll figure out what we're going to have on that post. But if you have any comments or questions, we are at Athlinks, or shoot us an email to podcast@athlinks.com. Share it with friends far and wide. Help spread the word. Tell people about it when you're in line at the grocery store. And until next time, happy racing, everybody.